All right. So our next panel. So this is a group of guys that are just titans in the real estate industry, and I've had the absolute privilege to work alongside them, some for a number of years and some more recently. And we just wanted to have a really good conversation to just let our audience know what's going on in the real estate market, both on the buy, sell, and investment side and on the mortgage side. And then from a realtor perspective, of course, that's the NAR term, real estate professional. From that perspective, what you can expect as an agent in this market, because we were talking earlier, so many agents haven't seen this market. So we've got some absolute hitters. So everybody take a second, introduce yourself, who you are, what you do. Take about 30 seconds and do it. Gene, Frederick, let's start with you, man.
No problem. I've been in the business 40 years. Started with Remax in the 80s. Went to Keller Williams in the 90s. Was with Keller for 21 years, and I've been with eXp Realty now for 9 years. And there were 400 agents when I started. Now we have close to 90,000. Very, very proud to be a realtor. I love real estate agents. They're my gigs. That's who I've taught and coached through the years. And I'm blessed to be on the podcast to share what I think is going to happen in the future here.
Love it. Thank you, Gene. Kevin Hoover.
Good day. I started real estate in 2005 in New York City. That's where I cut my teeth. Learned the business in the big city. And then I moved to the beach of South Carolina around 2007 and got a hard lesson in 2008, as a lot of people did. And I've been coaching real estate agents for 10 years. And I'm with eXp and LGI as a growth coach. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation today.
Love it. Mr. Scott Lewis.
Well, thanks for having us first and foremost, Jacob. And I'm honored to be surrounded by this group of amazing men and what I call friends, all of you. And this is interesting time in real estate. And we've seen disruption happen, and now we're seeing it happen again. And it's pretty exciting. I started the business as a Century 21 owner. Owned one of the top franchises in the United States for Century 21. Spent 3 years at Keller Williams and spent the last 9 years at eXp. And I'm excited to talk about the real estate disruption today with Mr. Jacob Clendenning. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man. David McMillan.
Thanks, Jake. I, too, am very proud to be on with these guys, friends and business associates. I've been in the I've been a mortgage loan originator for 35 years. I followed my dad into the stock market and got my Series 7 living in Colorado, and then moved to Texas, to Austin, Texas in 1985, and have been doing mortgages ever since. And you're right. I mean, talk about interesting times in the mortgage space too. So my business plan for most of those 35 years has been partnerships with either real estate companies, brokerages, partners, and that's kind of still what we're doing now. Only in the mortgage space, there's been a lot of changes, and in the real estate space, there's a lot of changes going on right now. So we're continuing those partnerships, but sometimes they take on a different shape, a different form, and we'll probably get into that more as we get into the panel. So thanks, Jake. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking before the panel, and that's one of those, like, the conversation just started organically, and I wish we were recording because it was already just gold that was coming out of you guys. And we were talking a little bit strategically about agents really needing to understand how to get buyers into this market, how buyers need to understand how to play the game, get into the game for one in this market. And from an investment perspective, and this is something David was speaking to, and David, let's start with you. What are you seeing from some just different strategies, non-conventional, non-traditional strategies that people are using to get into either luxury market, investment? What do they have access to that they don't know they have access to?
Jake, that's a really good question. I'll start with a DSCR loan. We talked about something different before we got on, but a DSCR stands for debt service coverage ratio. We closed a loan last week for an investor. The first thing he told us, he's a self-employed guy, first thing he told us is, hey, listen, I'm not showing a lot of income on my tax returns, man. I write everything off, and I'm not going to qualify. Well, we said, we've got a product for you. And it's a 20% down product. So that's going to help his monthly payment, his PITI, his principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And as long as that monthly payment was 80% of the rent. So his 80% of what he's going to rent that house for, because it was an investment property, has got to cover that payment, 100% of the payment. And then he doesn't need his tax returns. We're not qualifying him on his, he still have to have good credit, but we're not qualifying him on his income. We're qualifying him on the debt service coverage ratio, that 80% of that rent is going to cover 100% of that payment, but with 20% down, 30% down, whatever he wants, that covered that. So that comes up a lot. People tell me, I'm not going to qualify. Well, hey, guess what? We've got a product for that. Another strategy, especially in the luxury market, if somebody's buying a $1, $2, $3 million home, they've probably got some pretty good assets, right? They've probably got an account, a stock account, an investment account. I've done this personally, where you can get a line of credit against your assets and pay cash for the house. So I'll show you an example. I bought a house that was an investment property, and I've now done it twice. I did it for my son when he went off to college. And then I did it on a house that became available next to another investment property. And I used my line of credit and paid cash. Both times I did this. I waited a year. I'm paying on the line of credit, whatever that rate is, and it wasn't much different. All the rates are kind of the same. You get the Fed funds rate, you get your line of credit rate, you got your mortgage rates. They're not too far off. And I waited a year. And then I did a cash out refinance. So we'll use my son as an example. He's in College Station, Texas. I'm in Austin. We bought a house, paid cash. I waited a year, and that property value had gone up from what I paid for it, probably went up about 10 or 15, 20%. Now, my cash out refinance, I could use, because I waited a year, I could use the appraised value. So the value had gone up. And an investment property is also 20% down. So now with my new value, I took 80% of the new value, which was about 90% of my purchase price. So I bought an investment property with 10% down, not 20% down, got my money back, paid off the line of credit, boom, done it exactly that way twice. So those are two different strategies. The luxury market, using a line of credit. I do mortgages, so it's not going to help me. I mean, I'm telling them how to do that. The debt service coverage ratio, and then I'll just throw in one more, Jake, for younger people. And Scott, Gene, and Kevin will attest to this. In real estate is the number one wealth building tool. Period. That's how people of high net worth build their net worth, is with real estate. If I was a 25-year-old kid, I would buy a duplex, and I'd probably put it on an FHA loan, 3.5% down, a duplex. I live in one side, I rent out the other side. A year later, I would go buy a single family residence with a conventional loan with maybe 5% down or even 3% down. I'd rent out the other side of the duplex. Now I've got two rental properties. I'm counting 75% of that rental income to help me qualify to buy the new house. Now in 1 year, with only putting 3 and 5% down, I've got 3 units. I've got 3 pieces of real estate, and that's a great way to get started. So I went kind of down a rabbit hole and covered a lot of different things there, Jake. But those are some different strategies that I try to tell people to think about.
Well, and the moral of your story, David, is, from my perspective, is if you're a new buyer, you're an investor, wherever, and you don't know all the things, because you can't know all the things. You're not a mortgage guy. You need to get in a relationship with a mortgage guy, not just any mortgage guy. You got to make sure that, a mortgage guy is a mortgage guy. You got to make sure you're not getting put in a box. You're not getting lumped into that single space of that somebody's just going to go, well, you didn't fit our general parameters. We're going to say no. I know David's got 171 different programs that are available to you.
I think there is some. And we only touched on 3 of them.
We only touch on 3 of them, right?
Bring me here all day, Jake.
The other 168. But that's the point. Like, you got to make sure when you're interviewing these people, I always say, you guys have heard me say it, you're a product of the 5 people you spend the most time around. It's the same thing with the people you get into a business relationship with. Make sure you're in a relationship with the right people. So, David, thank you for that. So, Scott, David was talking about real estate being a huge wealth building, and you've been in the real estate industry for a minute. As a wealth building tool, what's some strategies you've used in the past, and what would you tell new real estate professionals coming into this? What's the avenue for wealth building?
Well, it's obviously real estate. I mean, it's been proven. I mean, and when you hear, Dave talk about just some of the creative ways to get into real estate, it makes your brain spin. You're like, man, why didn't I know that when I was 24 years old? Where would I be today? I mean, I didn't get into real estate until my late 40s. But I'm out here at the Grand Tetons with my 2 sons. One's 24 and the other one's 26. And that's all we talk about is real estate, right? And because I want them to get indoctrinated early, because I know if they do that now at their age, by the time they're my age, the last thing they're going to be worried about is money, right? And so how cool is that you can, teach that to your kids and surround your kids with people that are in this industry. So, for young kids out there, I mean, it's a weird generation because they're not thinking about owning, but I can tell you, for those that are thinking about it and that are focused on it, it's a life changer. And there's so many creative ways to get into real estate. And I will make a plug for a company out there called Real Bricks, realbricks.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can go on there and you can buy stock in real estate for as little as $100. So someone wanting to invest in real estate can get in the game now and actually buy a part of a house. So I encourage all kids, just figure out a way, get creative. And like you said, get with a loan officer. And if you're an agent today, you need to have a professional loan officer in your back pocket. I mean, that person needs to be on speed dial. You need to be talking to them every day about the market. And, and I learned a lot of this stuff from another gentleman that's on here, Gene Frederick. He's got a book out there called 101 Ways to Lead Generate. If you haven't read that book, man, you're missing out. I mean, every agent should be reading that book, and because it's so easy to get into real estate, but we think it's tough because we're hanging around the wrong people and listening to the wrong people. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a great time to be in real estate.
And I want to take that straight into Kevin with this one, because we hear it in the market all the time of, oh, this market is so hard. It's just horrible. And I'm just having a hard time. And yet Scott very authentically just said, I think it's a great time to be into real estate. And I think everybody on this particular panel would agree with that. So when you hear Scott say that, Kevin, this is a great time to be in real estate, both as an agent and as a buyer to get in the game, and as a seller to be able to do their investment strategies. What are you coaching people on that way?
I think it's great perspective. I think it's really easy to say things are not in my favor. It's really easy to say, you watch the news, you see the media that goes around. But when you really zoom out of it, it goes back to that initial idea that real estate has consistently for the last 50 plus years been the number one wealth builder in the world. And so how do these people accumulate the wealth? So I'm coaching my agents on staying ahead of the curves and the trends. I'm coaching my agents on not convincing people that the old way is right, migrating into the new way. When we talk about what real estate agents have done historically, we're trying to convince the population that the way we did it 20 years ago is still relevant, instead of moving into what the clients and customers actually want. And so it is that progression of how are you taking this market we're in, putting your perspective on it, presenting it in a way that helps someone build their own wealth. And I just think it's all about your perspective. If you wake up every day and you think the sky is falling, it's probably going to fall on you. If you wake up every day and you say, where's my opportunity? Where's my chance? And you have to dig in those nooks and crannies to find it, you're going to find your business. And it's really, you zoom out of that and you say, why are so many agents suffering? But then you have an agent doing 50 million a year as a solo agent, 100 million a year as a solo agent. They're in those little zones of genius, of disruption, and that's where the business is these days. The wide population, the big ocean is not where the business is. So that's what I'm coaching on right now and really talking about for myself and my clients is getting into those little crevices where that's where you find the good stuff right now.
Yeah, and we've heard the phrase "get rich in your niche," and it's totally true. One of the best agents that I know, and back to Scott talking about lead generation, and with what you're talking about in that niche, one of the best agents that I know is out there, and he speaks about this from stage. His name's Brendan, and I've heard him say it a bunch of times, and I love this. It is every day I go to work, I know I got to get 36 people to tell me no. Because 36 people tell me no, the 37th one makes me insanely rich. And that's what he does. He goes in his goal every single day, set an appointment for a listing appointment, go take a listing. He doesn't do listing appointments. He just goes and takes listings. But that's what he knows. He knows his numbers to the point in his niche that all he has to do is get 36 people to tell him no. Like some people are going, oh God, that's painful. It's not. That's an easy number. I would, if I knew that number so critically as he does, why on earth would I not do that? So I love that as a coach that you're really specifically talking about getting into that niche. So, Gene, you've got a wealth of information in this market. You've done this for a minute as well. So, pony up on the conversation. Where are you at with it? I don't even want to prompt you of where I want you to go with this. What are you hearing? What can you tell agents, new buyers, sellers? Where are we at in this universe?
Well, let's talk to agents first, because I think the agents are going through a tough time. We were talking about it before we got on, Jake. 4/5 of the agents have never been through a market where the rates went from 3% to 7% in like months. I mean, I've never, when that happens, guys, it's critical. Most of the agents, they were selling homes like hotcakes. 2021 was the best year NAR had ever. 6.1 million units sold. So we went down by almost 35% in 2 years. What happened? What happened to agents? What happened to that? Wait, this isn't working. Let me tell you, I turned to my notebook to have this today. And the first thing, I didn't just turn to a page. Be grateful for your challenges. It was on my page. Be grateful for your challenges. Anybody could sell at a 3% rate. When we went up to 7, everybody all of a sudden went, whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, what's David McMillan's number, dude? I am gonna go grab me a mortgage guy and a mortgage gal and say, how am I gonna get through this market? Guys, it's the best time to be an agent. Let me talk to agents here. Clients, COVID did something. I have kids that are in this market. One daughter was looking for a job. Guess what she did during COVID? She got a new job and she told her people, just so you know, I'm never coming into work again. Don't expect me to come to an office. Her and her husband both work from home. They literally travel every 2 weeks and go somewhere else in the nation and still work. Guys, it's changed for our clients. We have to adapt. So here's what's happening. People want to live, they want to follow the weather. Guys, I own 3 homes. Guess what I do? I follow good weather. I like warm weather. If you like cold weather and want to ski all the time, go to South America in the summer, whatever. I follow the warm weather. Guess what? I work from my home. Let me tell you what's going to happen to agents. If you're not into social media, YouTube, virtual tours, guys, the last 2 homes I bought as a client through agents, I never saw the property in person. They did virtual tours for me and said, Gene, this is the property. You told me what you want. Here it is in Breckenridge, Colorado. Here it is in Puerto Rico. I now live in Puerto Rico. Love the weather, by the way. Here's what I want you guys to do as agents. And most people don't talk about this. I had a big meeting yesterday it reminds me of you guys as coaches. They're trying to get agents to sell more homes, right? What are we going to do? We're talking to agents. You know what I told them? If you were making $500 to $1,000 a month more per month without selling a home, would that help you get through this market? They said, yes. I said, quite honestly, you need to come to EXP and get into revenue share. I'm sorry. I want to change their lives. If they were making $1,000 or $2,000 a month in revenue share, which EXP, I'm going to tell you in the next 4 years, Scotty and I know this, is going to pay out $1 billion in revenue share. Scotty, it's not a million. I know it's not a trillion, but it's $1 billion. So in the next 4 years, we're going to pay out $1 billion. If agents understood that they could make that money a little bit on the side, I think it would help them through the market, Jake. I really do think it would help them through this market. And I really want to throw that in there because I quite honestly go, well, all we do is talk about production, how to sell homes or how to get leads. I wrote a book on it. I'm writing another book that's coming out next year, by the way, on how to do this stuff. But the bottom line is, guys, great time to be a realtor. Excellent time, because most people don't want to put the time in to learn and to be coached, right? I'm glad we got the coach on here today, baby, because you better be coached.
Yeah, of course, I'm a coach too. So of course I'm going to say, yes, you need to be coached. I love accountability because accountability is love. That's where that comes from. Is we know that the only difference, and like the vast majority of guys on here play golf too, and we know that the difference between an amateur and a professional is a single thing. They have a coach. They have a coach. The professionals all have a coach. That is one of the things that absolutely is critical. So when you're calling yourself a professional real estate agent, for example, and you're not being coached, you're not in an accountability group or productivity coach, you're not surrounding yourself, can you call yourself a professional? You've got the license, it says you are, but can you call yourself that? At one point in my career, I had five coaches at one particular time because I needed to get better. I needed to get better much faster. And the way to do that was to hire a coach. You talked about 2021 of what COVID did and the things that it did for us as an agent. There was a time, and I've been in real estate production a long time. One of my favorite things in 2010 in Alaska, when I was doing real estate up there, I sold a house, sight unseen, video tour, like YouTube video tour. I'd take the tour, upload it to YouTube. It was a giant pain in the butt because I had no idea how to do it. But the gentleman was deployed Air Force. He was elsewhere. He bought the house sight unseen. I never met the buyer. I did the video tour. I sent it to them. And that was in 2010. So buyers have been doing this a long time. COVID just gave everybody the tools that, we have this, we have StreamYard, we have Zoom, we have every conceivable live that we can use. So let's talk technology and tools for a second. For, to Gene's point, and we'll go backwards. I'll go right back to Gene. So what would be a tool right now that a buyer would want to use, or let's just go this way. I don't want to prompt you. What tools do they need to be using and really plugging into to be a great agent and or be a buyer and seller to get into this market?
Well, number one, from the agent's point of view, I'll tell it real quick because I talk to agents every single day. AI. I mean, we can say AI, it's only 2 words, but I talk to an agent. If you're ever doing your marketing by yourself, writing your own stuff, forget about it. AI will do it in 3 minutes. Time saver, time saver, time saver. AI is the big tube. The big thing for agents too is YouTube. When I say that, YouTube, the clients can get to know you really easy by YouTube. You need to be doing YouTubes all the time. And we have a lot of people that teach on that too. You talk about coaches. I'd have my YouTube coach. If I was an agent, I'd have my YouTube coach. I'd have my AI coach, and they're out there, both of them. And I'd pay both of those, and they'd be in my hip pocket because those are the 2 things. I was using Zoom in 2018 before COVID. Just so you know, body language is still body language. People laugh because they go, oh, everybody's, virtual or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Body language is key. I want to see that person. Even if I'm going to show them the home virtually, right? I want to see their response. I want to see what they liked about the property. So those are the things I would hit right away. AI, YouTube, virtual tours are the 3 first things I wrote down.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So, and you think about what it opens up, one, from an agent perspective of your market. Sure, you can work with only lower buyer, your local buyers, terrible thing to say, local buyers or local sellers that are, how big's that market? Call it 1,000 people. Or you can work with a virtual group. How big is that market? It's probably 10,000. So your market is much bigger. But the same concept is true coming from a buyer or a seller. you could have, how many listing agents can you have come to your house and walk through the house, versus as a seller, if you're using Zoom, you do a single walkthrough, you can interview 100+ agents of the people that that are right for you. You can filter through them a lot easier using the technology. And you're right with AI. If as an agent you're not using AI to produce your search engine optimization, keywords, meta phrases, tags, all of the things you need to create in your social media to get your SEO up, man, you're missing the boat right there. That is a great tool. So thank you for that. All right, Kevin, same deal. Tools and things that you're coaching on right now. What do people need to be using?
I'll piggyback and expand a little bit. AI is definitely one of them from a leverage standpoint, also from a gathering information standpoint. And then I think another thing that I'm really preaching to my agents is utilizing the web of social media, meaning and I'll just speak directly to the agents on that one, meaning if you're doing an open house and agents are going to come through, how do you capitalize on their audience? And so setting up social media stations in that house. Hey, agents, come get your social media taken care of for the month at my open house. It's a great strategy because you've got to really spread that web wide. It's all about attention, using AI to create the content and then saying, how do I get that content in front of as many people as possible? If I invite the top agents in my market to come have a social media moment in my listing, it reaches a ton of people. They're going to share it to their audience, to their audience, to their audience. And so you got to understand how that web works. That's number one. Blockchain is something else I would really dive into. When you talk about the selling and purchasing of homes, blockchain is, while it may not be super relevant right now as far as securely buying homes, it's going to be there before you know it. And if you're not ahead of that curve, you're going to be stuck behind. And that's the whole point of this, is to stay ahead of the trends, stay ahead of the technology. How are you integrating that into your spiel now, into your buyer consultations, your listing presentations? Are you utilizing AI to really present yourself in the best value possible, and then spreading that web and then understanding where the future is going? So for me, those are the two things I'm really preaching on, mainly AI, and then dipping a toe in the blockchain as far as what the future of actually buying and selling real estate will be.
Yeah, that's a good one. And that's imminent, right? That's imminent. Yeah. That's like cell phones back in the early 90s. That was imminent. Yeah. It was going to happen. So yeah, absolutely agree with that. So Scott, what resources or tools are either agents, buyers, or sellers? What would you recommend for people right now? What are you coaching them on?
Yeah, well, I want to piggyback a little bit on what Kevin said. I mean, being relevant in the AI space, I think is going to be important. I think blockchain is going to be important. There's so many disruptions out there, and that's the name of this channel, right? Total disruption. And so I'd be remiss if I'd like to kind of stretch this into a conversation about the market in general and, the space that we're in, which is real estate. I just did a talk out in New Jersey this last week talking about the history of real estate and where we're going. And COVID did change things, but things were changed before COVID came. People just didn't realize it. And so I've been doing a lot of research and studying disruption, which is the topic of your show here. And really, disruption starts with technology, right? But technology changes so fast, it's hard to keep up with it as an agent. It can be very overwhelming. But I think being with a company that is disruptive in nature, you're surrounded by those people that are, they're used to disruption. They're in the middle of it. And the EXP model totally disrupted the industry. I mean, let's face it, it's a phenomenon that we had never seen, right? 0 to 80,000 agents, lickety split overnight. How did that happen? Well, it was a massive disruption in the market, massive change. And then COVID came along. And, I remember, and Gene remembers this, we were having conversations early on, probably 4 out of 10 conversations, agents were like, I'm not sure I can work without an office. Well, after COVID, I never heard that from anyone, right? That went out the window. And so it was gone like overnight. And so all of a sudden, so that the disruption, there's 3 phases of disruption. And the first phase is like the pioneering stage. It's that company that comes out of the gate that says, I don't care what you think, we're going to do this. And they catch hell for it, right? Because everybody's looking at it going, what are you doing, right? But one breaks out. It's like, okay, Google. Google disrupted the industry. Facebook disrupted the industry. EXP disrupted the industry. Netflix disrupted an industry. And so that's the first phase. And then you have what's the consolidation phase, which we're in the middle of consolidation right now. And that is where you see copycats, right? And so you're seeing 5, 10, 15 copycats. There's going to be hundreds of copycats in this industry. And how many failed franchise models are there? If you look back at the history of the franchise industry, a lot of them made it really big, but there were many more that didn't make it, that failed in that consolidation phase, right? You start talking about debt and building a company and the changes in market. It's tough to start a new brokerage. And then the final stage, which I think will happen in the next 2 to 3 years, is the domination stage. And that's when the disruptive new technology, new industry, whatever it is, takes over the industry. And so you're going to see the beginning of the end of these models that are relying on brick and mortar. It just doesn't hold up. It's not going to last. And so going back into technology, learning to use Zoom, like Gene just said, learning to use YouTube, learning to be able to work from wherever you are, which is pretty cool if you think about it. I mean, to be a young kid in this market and go, man, I can go anywhere in the world and build a real estate business. Could you do that 20 years ago? No, no, you had to have that book you carried around in your car just so you could find the house in your neighborhood. Right? I mean, I mean, to think about that and the change we've gone through in 20 years, it's phenomenal. And so the opportunities are endless, but you have to be with the right company. You have to be with the right disruptor. And yeah, these technologies are important, but don't get wrapped up in them so much because it's still the relationship. It's the people that learn to get past the technology and get into relationships using technology that are going to win. AI is a tool to get into relationships. YouTube is a tool to get into relationships. All of these social media tools are a way to get into more relationships. And now you can get into more relationships in more markets and build, in so many different ways. I just think it's a really, again, I think it's the best time ever to get into real estate. But for most people, it's overwhelming. But for the ones that look for the opportunities, they're going to, I grew up on a farm. And I compare it to the farmer, right? When I was a kid and we went to the coffee shop, I'm a 10-year-old going into the coffee shop down at the Cotton Gin or down at the local store, to get my Coca-Cola with peanuts in it. Some of you are too young to even know what that tastes like, but it was pretty good stuff, right? You pour your peanuts in the Coke, man, that was the best thing ever. We go down to the store and we have our coffee, or I'm having coffee with all these old timers. And there's hundreds of them sitting around, shooting the bull, talking about their fertilizers, talking about their chemicals, but they're everywhere. Well, guess what? Today, my brother's one of the largest cotton farmers in the world. And the farming community is pretty much, it's hard to get into the industry. Well, it's going to be harder and harder to get into the real estate industry. So you got to make sure you're on top because there are going to be fewer and fewer professionals, but the professionals are going to literally crush it. So go master something as an agent. I don't care what it is. If it's an open house, go master it. If it's a FSBO call, master it. If you're a coach, master it. If you master something, if you master one thing, you will find your way to the top of this industry. And all the technology in the world isn't going to mean a thing if you have mastered something and you use that to build relationships. So I love technology, but for me, nothing takes the place of the relationship.
But using the tool to build it. And I
Yes.
think that's really, really important. And you use the word plenty of times. And if people didn't hear the word is relationships. Like that is the word in this industry. It's always been the word. It's going to keep being the word. Like, you've got to be in a relationship. You can't call somebody one time a year and expect they're going to send you a referral 2 years later. Like, you got to be, I call them the how's your mama calls, right? You got to call them every month. How's your mama? What's going on? Who are you? If you're in that kind of relationship, when you have that kind of phone call, those are your warrior champions. Those are the people, like, as a buyer and a seller and an investor, I'm going to want to do business with Scott and Kevin and David and Gene, because those guys are calling me and going, hey, what's going on? You guys, you got a fire near your house. You guys okay? Do you need anything? Like, those kind of phone calls are relationship phone calls. And you got to let them know. So I love that you bring that up. So David, so talk to me about a tool or resource, or how we're building relationships. Let's build on that.
Jake, absolutely. It reminds me of a story I tell loan officers about relationships. I can remember, hey, a loan officer thinking to himself, Mary Smith hasn't sent me a deal in 6 months. I haven't talked to Mary Smith in 6 months. Whose fault is it? It's certainly not Mary Smith's. We speaking of technology and tools and stuff like that, there's been obviously a lot of changes in the mortgage space as well. I won't go quite far as back as Scott did. Well, maybe I will. You guys, I'm sure, remember doing contracts with carbon paper.
Press hard, 3 copies.
Yeah, you kids that don't know what carbon paper is, it's this black filament that went in between the pages, and you had to press really hard to write the contract. But now, and everything was done by hand and paper files and stuff like that. Now we can close a loan in 10 days. We can get the automated underwriting systems that you just put it all in there and it gets approved. Automated verifications of employment, automated verifications of deposits is all happening. There are big changes coming in the appraisal space, in the appraisal industry, in how to, Kevin talked about blockchain. You bring all that stuff together and the appraisals are going to get faster and quicker. So there's a ton of stuff for the consumer to get that loan approved a lot faster. It always used to take 30 or 45 days. Now we can do it in, like I say, 10. For the agent and the loan officer, there's a bunch of changes. We have a very robust phone app that everything can happen on that phone app. I mean, we're all working on our phones, right? And so I remember agents, and this is probably a hassle for both agents and loan officers. They wanted to put in an offer, so they needed a pre-approval letter. Well, they got to call the loan officer. Now they can do it on their app, and they have parameters, and they can pull up their own pre-qualification letter on their app. With the agents, they can pull up their own co-branded marketing material. They can pull up a single property website. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that we can do 24/7 nowadays, because I know Gene gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning, starts watching TV and working on his phone. And so just all that change and that is going on in our industry makes everybody's jobs a little bit easier. And mortgage and real estate have always been intertwined. My whole career, I've either done joint ventures or limited partnerships or marketing services agreements with real estate companies. But to make it easier for the consumer, because this is for the consumer, and I mean, us professionals too, but it's all about the client. And so to get these together, I mean, we're building branches with real estate brokerages so that they can have one-stop shop. And then at our company, we can bank loans, we can broker loans. We've got, like Jake said, 171 products. So we're all about combining our resources, making it cheaper and a better rate for the consumer. So there's just a lot going on in both our industries. And, HUD came out with a mortgagee letter less than 2 years ago, talking about how you can merge real estate and mortgage even more. And when the government changes a guideline or a rule or a statute, we're moving in that direction. So we're going to see more and more of us all working together.
Hey, Jake, can I pop in here, Jake?
100%.
I want to change it up. What Scotty said is so important. Relationships. Guys, technology is great. I've been through it all. I had the first cell phone at my Remax in 1986. You guys didn't even know what it was. It was called a car phone. I put it in my car. So technology changes, like you said.
This big.
It was huge. I carried it around. Now, but let me give you a book to read that'll change your life as far as agents. It's called The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. It's called The Tipping Point. There are 3 people that'll change your life. I'm on a Zoom with one of them that changed my life. They're called connectors. That's a Scott Lewis. The minute I found Scott Lewis in 2015, it changed my life. You don't have to have a database of 2,000, 3,000 people. You need to know who your connectors are. Connectors spread the word. Connectors connect everybody, and they do it without having to pay them. I'm just telling you guys right now, you find your connectors, your life will be changed. Once I read that book, Jake, I went, wait, I don't have to have 3,000 people in my database. I'm going to keep it to 200 to 300. I'm going to find my connectors, my mavens, and my salespeople. Because David McMillan, found him in 2010. We became buddies the minute we met because we knew each other could connect each other with other people. I got news for you. Relationships are everything in life. Everything. We can talk technologies forever. But if you guys, as agents, I'm going to coach you right now. If you call 10 people a day, by the way, call at least one connector, one salesperson, and one maven, your life will change. You don't have to contact 40 people. You contact them. And here's my script. Hey, Scotty, can you help me? I love the help script. Scotty go, what do you mean, Gene? I said, man, I'll tell you what, it's kind of crazy. We've gone from 3% to 7%. And I mean, it's crazy. I can't get people. Nobody's moving into Phoenix, Arizona. Could you do me a favor? Could you go to work today and find out if anybody has anybody moving into town or needs to sell their home? Could you do that for me? What will Scotty do as a connector? He's going to work to find me somebody. He's a connector. That's what they do, guys. You don't understand. They live it. Oh boy, Gene asked me to help him. Guys, I could get right back into the real estate business right now. Call my connectors, call my mavens, call my salespeople, and use the help script. Okay, could you help me today? Go find me somebody that needs it, and I'd be full of people. You guys are making it too complicated. Does that make sense? Get on calls with them. I don't know about you guys, but I'm old fashioned. If I'm talking to you, Jake, I get a feeling talking to you. Texts are great. I text all the time, but get on the phone and call them and say, man, can you help me?
Yeah. Feelings make us act. So let's
So
put a bow on this. And Gene's totally right? We're right there with relationships. So last piece of advice that you can give buyer, seller, agent coming into the market, 30 seconds or less. What's the best thing that you could tell people? Scott, since you're the connector, and we know it's true because I called Scott and I'm like, hey, Scott, I want to have a real estate panel. Scott called everybody else. Like, we know that's how that works. So, 100%. We know he's that connector, and I love it. So, Scott, what's one thing you would tell somebody in this market right now?
Well, I guess as a connector, you don't have to be that smart. That's what I would say. If you're a good connector, you just find some really smart people and connect them. And, I think there's a lot of truth in that. I can't remember which president it was, but he said he didn't have to be that smart. He just, and if you're the smartest person in the room, something's wrong, right? So surround yourself with great people, really protect your relationships, and that's one of the conversations I was having with my boys on the hike yesterday. Your relationships, you want to, they're sacred. The really close people that you really surround yourself with. You don't need 1,000 friends. You need a few great friends, and they're sacred, and protect them, and and find connectors, find mavens. Find people that are going to get in the trenches with you in this time. And if your people aren't connecting you, like Gene said, and if you don't have a great mortgage guy or a great coach. I mean, what a perfect team. I mean, we got two great coaches. We got one of the best real estate agents to ever build in the industry and one of the best mortgage guys to ever build in this industry, all on this panel. And so, you want a team like that. You want somebody, I mean, if you go to war, do you want to be surrounded by a bunch of people that have never shot a gun?
No, not so much.
I mean,
Unless they're on
not
the other
so
side.
much, right? If you go into surgery, do you want to be with a doctor in his first surgery and a nurse in her first day on the job?
Right.
So, I mean, why would your business be any different? Why? I mean, this is what you're building, your legacy, your family, your future, man, your relationships, your warriors, the people you go into battle with, and the last thing I'll say is every agent should have a war room. You need a place that is sacred where you go into battle every single day, or at least, when you're home, you need that place that's you have your goals, your dreams, your missions, the things that you're looking forward to in the future right out in front of you so you can see it every single day. So, and this has been awesome. Thanks for having us, Jake.
No, so good. All right, David, real quick, man. One thing you tell people in this market right now.
I hate to kind of pile on, but you're so right. I can remember in the beginning, I was tending bar. I'm 25 years old, and one of the waitresses' moms was in the title business, and I positioned myself around that. And then she positioned myself around one of the biggest brokers in Austin, Texas. And then I positioned myself around people that had the biggest company in Austin, that had the biggest market share in Austin.
Oh, David froze. That's not normal. All right. Well, David's coming back. Let's put a bow on it, man.
Well, put a bow on it. Be grateful and excited for the challenges of this market. I'm the only person that was excited for a little downturn. You know why? Anybody can sell in a great market with 3% rates. I'm just being real with everybody. It was too easy. Be grateful and excited for your challenges. Go after and get it. And I'll agree with everybody said. You know what? Be a legend in what you do. Not only master it, be a legend. Be the legend in your industry. Be the person that everybody in your market goes, I've got to call that person and see how to do open houses. I've got to call that person and see how to do warm calls, as I call them. I don't call them cold calls, right? To do FSBOs and expires. Be a legend. Have fun doing it. Just be grateful that the Lord put us on this earth to do something good for people, because housing is really at my heart. This is housing, guys. We're providing housing for people. Remember that.
Yeah, that's it. Gentlemen, thank you so much. This was amazing today. Really appreciate it. Hopefully our audience took something away from it. I will make sure that we've got contact information for everybody that we can get a hold of. Make sure we get a hold of David, we get a hold of Kevin. Maybe Gene and Scott don't want to get a hold of everybody, but at the same time, if you reach me, I can reach them. So we'll make sure we throw a filter in there for those guys. Thank you again so much for being here today, guys. Really appreciate you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Jake.
Great
Thank
panel.
you. Appreciate it.